Call to order the New King County Board of Supervisors, April 27, 2022, work session to order. Ms. Watkins, can you call the roll, please?
Mr. Evelyn?
Here.
Mr. Tiller?
Here.
Ms. Page?
Here.
Mr. Steers?
Here.
And Mr. Lockwood?
Here.
Morning, everyone. All right. First item this morning is court salary supplements request. Ms. Wiggins and Ms. Mills. Y'all come sit right there.
So I'm Rachel Mills, I'm the clerk of General District Court.
If you just hit that button while you're.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Rachel Mills, I'm the clerk of General District Court. I've been here since September of 21. Lifelong resident of New Kent. Started as a part-time employee back here in 2010. In the folder, we have recommendation letters or supporting letters from the sheriff, the clerk of circuit court, and the Commonwealth attorney. So New Kent is still considered a small county. We all know it's grown at a rapid rate over the past few years. Our employees are brought in at 32,000 flat. Other counties, they have career ladders and supervising titles. In our court, there is no moving up. What you're brought in at is what you stay at. We have relied on raises from the state, which is not, sorry, I'm really nervous. Which is not
Relax.
existent recently. Cost of living is rising, and our salaries have not reflected that. In my court alone, we have 2 full-time employees, 2 part-time employees. They're all salary. There's no options for overtime. Little background of our job duties. We answer phone inquiries. We enter cases. We issue restricted license, arrest warrants, protective orders, warning debts, unlawful detainers. We assess court costs. We're responsible for bonds, jail dispositions. We work with the judges, attorneys, sheriff department, Virginia State Police, DMV, classification officers with the jails, ASAP probation. We're often referred to as a people's court. We deal with people that are not having the best day. We strive to help the public out the best we can, and that's hard to do when I'm steadily having to train new employees. From losing them to different courts and other government agencies that pay more and they offer supplements. The clerk's position in other courts is more of a manager position. In our court, we're still smaller, so I sit in courts. I work in Front County. I answer phones. I work the traffic, criminal, and civil division, and bookkeeping. The local fund sheets that I've listed in there, those handed up, it's a list of checks that have been written to the county from the past 2 fiscal years. According to the code section, that is where the supplements for the courts would come from. We have the same retirement system as the circuit court, so it would be no difference in the way that we're supplemented than how circuit court is. We don't have a preference on how it's supplemented. If that is an option, we can do 1099, or I think circuit, I don't know if they're paid monthly or bi-weekly. I'm not sure how that was. I can't remember what Amy told us. When it comes to the courts, the county, they view us as employees of New Kent, not state employees. We've also been involved with the county. We do New Kent University over the past few years. Since September, our court, with myself, I've hired an entire new staff. I've lost them to the Supreme Court. I've lost them to other counties. And that's my spiel.
I'm Kelly Wiggins. I have been the clerk in the...
Can you hit the button again? Can you cut yours off? Thank you.
I'm used to talking. I'm just used to listening. I'm Kelly Wiggins. I've been the clerk here since January of 2000, so I've been here forever. I now live in the county. I moved here from Allegheny County to accept this job, like Rachel discussed. I started as a deputy clerk, and this was the only way I could move up, was to move here from another locality to become a clerk. Our jobs are extremely difficult at times. I'm sure you all are aware of the public customer that we serve now. They have become a little bit more difficult on our end as we see them, as Rachel mentioned, on their worst days before the court. My duties are very similar to Rachel's, but different in the division of court that we handle. We handle the juvenile and domestic relations aspect of it, which include the crimes against juveniles, the juvenile that commits the crimes, family, domestic violence issues, things of that nature, and of course, custody, visitation, and child support matters. I pulled some numbers they're attached in there too, about the past couple of years, including 2020 when we were supposedly closed. We were not closed. We were open for business every day with the exception of 1 week when we had to close for COVID. But we still served the public. We took in filings. We had court hearings, even though they were limited. We took care of all of that, and we did not receive hazard pay or anything other than the county and the sheriff taking care of us and making sure that we were provided with the PPE and the safety, which we greatly appreciate. As Rachel mentioned, the grade 8 deputy clerk starts out at $32,000, which is barely over $15 an hour. I will use Rosie's for instance. They start out at $15 per hour for a custodial sort of job. Ours is a very complicated, a very educated sort of job. You can't just walk into it and expect to serve the public. We spend, at the bare minimum, 6 months training an employee on how to answer the public and to deal with their problems, inquiries, making payment plans, and things of that nature. And as Rachel mentioned, it's oftentimes a stepping board to another court where they can move up. They can't move up here unless we resign or retire or move on to another agency. As Rachel mentioned, we don't have many opportunities with the state to give us adjustments. We are not paid merit-based raises at all. We just generally get the same 5% or whatever the state wants to provide, and there have been years that they haven't provided it because the state didn't meet the budget expectations, and that was very disappointing, especially when we're all struggling to survive with now high gas prices and food prices. We don't get compensated for good performance, and that's totally a bummer for a deputy clerk coming in when they're working their tail off and all they get from us is a thank you and maybe a pizza party every couple of months, and that's just not doable. We would like to become part of the county. There are 33 courts in the Commonwealth that do provide a supplement that are within 23 counties. That means the district and the juvenile and the general district court. We do not get overtime. We are not paid hours extra. In other words, if you see our cars here after 6, it's usually Rachel and I staying here because we have to kick our deputy clerks out because we don't have the funds for that. The funding that we do get from the Commonwealth is to pay our wage employee. I have one full-time employee and a wage employee, and that's all for my staff besides me. So if my other deputy clerk goes out, I am the only one available every day, and that's insane. That's happened to me in my years where I was having turnover. I know that I was not able to hire a deputy clerk for, I think, 4 months. So I had to work for 4 months straight with little or no help, begging the Supreme Court to send people to help, not being able to do doctor's appointments or take any time off. And that's also very frustrating and very, very hard to deal with. We are asking you, as the Board of Supervisors and the administration, to provide us with a salary supplement, as Rachel mentioned. If you would like for us to do a 1099, we'd be happy to do that. Or if you could pay us along the lines of the way that circuit court is paid. This would help our staff and help us know that you recognize us and appreciate us. And I don't want to sound like we complain about our jobs because I know that I don't. I love my job. I love the county that I work for, and I love living in New Kent County. It's a great, safe place to live, and I am happy to see the growth that we're getting, and we appreciate your consideration, and thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. So your employees, they cannot get, so you just knock them off after 40 hours because I know it's illegal for them to work over and not get paid. So there's no money in the budget to cover the overtime is what I guess I'm understanding.
No, sir. The wage budget that I receive pays for my wage employee to work 2 days a week. And that's just I wish we could have her more than 2 days.
Mhm.
Because we were in court yesterday till, I think, 4:30, 4:40, and I had to kick people out, and I stayed.
And when we finish court, it's not just a matter of closing up. You have to do your end-of-the-day financials. You have to make sure cases are updated. There's a lot more work than just saying, okay, it's time for you to go home. Sometimes we get stuck. I know I've been stuck here very late many occasions.
And I do have a wage budget, but I passed mine over to, I believe, King, William, and Charles City, because I don't have a spot for a wage employee. I don't have desk space. Your act capacity for employees.
Anybody else have any questions?
I do. Do you have the opportunity to go before the Supreme Court of the state regarding your wages?
No, we are not allowed to do that unless we have the permission of Carl Haid, who is the secretary for the executive secretary for the office of the executive secretary.
So you hire employees with the expectation that they're going to get increases, or, I mean, maybe I don't get it. So what we're going to hear this year from everybody is that we're losing employees. Okay, so everybody's losing employees. We're going to hear that gas is going up. Everybody's gas is going up. Everybody's food is going up. We're going to hear that. What I guess I can't get in my head is when people get hired, their salary, they don't wait until the day to get paid, and all of a sudden it's like, wow, this is how much I get paid. I mean, so a long time ago when I applied for a job, I wanted to know how much I was going to get paid, when I was going to get paid, what my benefits were, when I was going to get my vacation. All of that was a part of what I asked for and what I wanted to know. And so for me, it becomes, where else can your fight go? I mean, you got letters of support for New Kent County, but you don't have letters of support for the state or for the Supreme Court. Nobody goes there to fight for you there. And even though you work in New Kent, nobody fights at the state level. Is that what you're saying to us?
So we have a professional district courts association, which I am now vice president of, and they are the ones that go before the General Assembly and ask for salary increases. They went, and it's my assumption that they go every January before the Assembly goes to session and ask. So they were there this January to ask for, or February, excuse me, to ask for additional funds. And I don't know where that went, but the last I heard was that it was not hopeful.
Okay, so our sheriff's office, our circuit court clerk, and I guess the judges of the different courts, they didn't send a letter to them.
My judge has one in there in the packet. My judge did, but
Okay.
I know Ms. Mills's judge has been out frequently. So
Okay.
And I know for my employees, so they come in and they know the salary that they're going to get. They come in, they get experience, and they lead to bigger courts that have different grade levels. So they're different levels of pay, and then supervising levels. So I basically bring them in, train them, and they leave for different positions, which I can't fault them for.
okay. And the larger courts are set up as, like Rachel said, the clerk is the managerial position. They essentially handle HR and hiring and run the schedules and whatnot. They have pre-court, which enters and takes care of the customers, and then post-court, which happens after, and then, of course, the clerk's in court. But I can say I've hired several employees. They've gotten there, okay, the benefits are great, this is going to be great, and then, oh, I don't like having to handle these sorts of cases because we are considered to get secondary trauma from our cases. So in other words, we hear the most horrible things, and they are kind of impressed on us. And I know there are nights that I sit and I just can't get things out of my head because people do terrible things to each other. And that's what we help get them to where they need to be so that the judge can do it. So they come to the job and they're like, oh, this is not what I expected, and I'm going to the private sector again.
So it's two deputy clerks positions now over there. They're 36,500 is what the wages are. On this sheet,
Yeah,
and I completely. That's all that's there, right? Y'all both have one. So
I have one full-time, and she is at 36, but my deputy clerk has been with the state for 20 years, so she was able to get the level that she was paid at when I hired her.
and I agree. I completely understand that, and there's
Yeah.
no way to move up, so I can understand what y'all are asking for. But
Yes.
so I guess you're asking us to supplement partial income to the deputy clerk position
And to us as clerks.
and the clerks. Have you given staff any numbers?
The numbers should be included with the
Okay, in there,
packet. Yes.
right?
I do want to point out too, just again.
Can you?
Code
I don't think I.
in the code section, it does say that the supplements would come out of the local funds. So it's the checks written from the courts to circuit court and the county every month.
All right. Well, we'll take it into consideration and get back in touch with you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Before we move on, I'm going to ask everyone that's speaking to the mic a little more, and when the people who is ever coming up to the podium, Ronnie, can we move the mics up so everybody can hear them? I think it's my understanding that they're having a hard time hearing people on the YouTube. All right, next item, New Kent County Refuge and Recycling presentation. Mr. Stewart.
Good morning, and thank you for allowing me the time to speak with you. We're going to do things a little differently today. Oh, do I? Okay. We'll do things a little differently. I know that you're accustomed to folks coming in here asking you for money. This is not one of those situations. Yet. But I did want to make you aware of some additional expenses that are on the horizon in the refuse and recycling world. Our current hauling and disposal contract is set to expire. Central Virginia Waste Management has acquired a new contract for us. Unfortunately, the cost of that contract increases by 49%. That's $170,000 annual increase. And being that refuse and recycling is probably the most utilized service that the county provides, we wanted to find ways or develop ways that would allow this service to remain a no cost or no pay service for the residents of the county. And what I've included in this packet is current cost, future cost, and some steps. I also put some photos in there so you could see what happens on a daily basis, especially out at the Route 618 site. And one thing that I'd like to point out before we dive into this too deeply is that construction and demolition debris accounts for approximately 1/3 of all of our waste from the Route 618 refuse site. So there are five steps we're proposing that will help us mitigate these oncoming expenses. And the first one is a little tricky. It's an ordinance that's been in place since 2007, but for whatever reason has never been enforced. My predecessor didn't enforce it. His before him didn't enforce it. And the ordinance clearly states that we are not to accept any construction, demolition, or land clearing debris at any of our sites. And as you can see by the pictures that I've included, and if you ever pay a visit out there, you'll see that that's what we're getting every day. The majority of it is coming from contractors. And we do take commercial waste out there, but there's no way to ensure where that waste is coming from. For instance, if I'm a contractor, I'm doing a job in Williamsburg, I'm putting that waste in my trailer, I'm bringing it to New Kent because I can dump it for free. Okay. So we'd like to enforce that ordinance, and we'll talk about the savings associated with each one of these steps in just a few pages. Secondly, we'd like to standardize the hours of operation at all sites. Right now, it's kind of a hodgepodge. We've got sites that are open from different times. The site at 612 has different operating hours than any of the other sites, and it just breeds confusion. We'd like to eliminate the premium wages paid to attendants by closing the sites on all county recognized holidays. We're also recommending to close all sites on Mondays. And also, the last measure would be to transition the e-recycling from the 618 site to semi-annual grant-funded events. I've included in the packet a copy of the ordinance from 2007, and if we were to enforce this ordinance alone, it could yield a $47,000, or let's just say $48,000 worth of savings per year. The second step we'd like to take, by standardizing the hours, we are recommending that we change from a 7 to 7 operation, and would like to shave 1 hour off the beginning and 1 hour off the end. So it would be an 8 to 6, all sites. That could yield us about $3,000 annually. And closing all sites on county recognized holidays would produce raw salary savings of $11,232 a year. Closing of sites on Mondays, that yields $30,000 worth of saving. And moving e-recycling events to semi-annually grant-funded versus dropping off at Route 618, $14,578 savings a year. Potential savings of all those steps combined is $58,560 a year. Unfortunately, that still leaves us with $62,000 of added expenses under the new contract. So we still have work to do. It's a big change. I understand, but I don't know how else we can keep this service free to the residents. Almost all the other counties, and there's information in here how the other counties do, it's a pay to dump scenario, whether it's by the ton, by the load, and even that has, there are problems associated with that. We don't have scales. We would have to incur the cost of putting scales out there. We'd have to determine how we're going to accept fees out there. Quite honestly, our staff out there now are minimum wage employees, part-time minimum wage employees. So I don't know how well we'd be able to perform doing that. So I know it's a big change. I know it's a big ask. But I'm at a loss as to how we can keep it free for our residents if we don't take these steps.
Anybody have any comments?
Just a couple of questions, actually, if I may. You said that about a third of it is construction and demolition debris.
Yes, sir.
How do we kind of differentiate? So we're not going to take, like, I got a 2x4 in the back of the truck. We're not going to take that anymore. Is that what we're saying? Or I guess I could actually sell it these days. But are we going to just not accept certain types of materials, or are we going to try to eliminate contractors bringing in loads of stuff? I guess would be my question: is how are we going to tell the homeowner that, you know?
Well, the way the current ordinance is written, we won't accept any of it.
Okay.
Okay. Now, if we choose to amend that ordinance, we could certainly do that.
Well, I think by eliminating it, it makes it easier to define,
Absolutely.
and it's kind of easily defined that way.
Yes, sir.
So,
Yes, sir. And their option is the Charles City Landfill, which is 11 miles away from our site, and that's a pay-to-dump scenario there.
okay.
Well, how come it's, you all are on the board? I mean, this is, once we enforce this, your telephone, if it passes, will be ringing off the hook.
Mr. Chairman, I don't, before we go there, if you notice, none of these supervisors that voted for that ordinance are serving the citizens today. I'm not saying it's because they passed that, but they're not serving the board or serving the citizens today. Not even you, Mr. Evans.
Yeah.
That's a shock.
Well, I think.
But and there's also, I'm sorry, John, go ahead.
No, just to that. I mean, it's kind of a little bit of a highlight there that why would we pass an ordinance and then not enforce it? So maybe for that reason they didn't want the phone ringing off the hook, but it doesn't do any good to have an ordinance there that could have saved us money all along, and this more clearly defined in the past. So I will also say that your plan for a e-recycling event, the Clean County Committee is looking at doing another full-blown event this year, and looking at what it would take to do 2 a year. So we're kind of on the radar for that already. We did get a supplemental grant, a little more money than we normally get this year, so it kind of gives us the ability to afford to do that without probably asking for any money this year. But and our logic to that was, maybe we could eliminate the need for that type of recycling at 618.
Yes, sir.
So I think that's easily done without a great deal of difficulty, and well received by the community too. So.
And also, Ms. Suter, I appreciate you trying to find ways to save money. I appreciate that. And also, since you've taken over the department and everything, I've had many compliments from staff across the camp, from our citizens about your staff.
Thank you, sir.
Where they actually get out of their little cabin and they come out even in the rain and help little old ladies with their Sunday dress on and help them get their boxes and junk out of their car and put it into the dumpster. So that goes a long way, and we appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I chair Central Virginia Waste Management Authority, and when they put out the bids, I can tell you that I was in contact with Mrs. Stewart. We looked at the bids. The bids that we have is the lowest bid that's coming back, and a lot of it is because of the lack of landfills. It's nobody knows where we're going to put trash. We got counties that's fighting because they don't want a landfill in their county. And so it becomes, with that and with the recycling, we are at the mercy of those that will come and pick up our trash. And so with that being said, then the vendor has the opportunity to increase their pricing. So if we forget about the ordinance for a minute, absolutely, I've talked to other localities. I've heard in different meetings that we've had as to how they're going to approach. I mean, even with the amount that New Kent is going to be paying, it does not touch the Chesterfields and the Henricos and the Petersburg and Hopewell. But if my ask would be, if we could think on the ordinance, but if we would consider items 2 through 4 and use it as a pilot maybe for a year. I don't know about you, but almost every site has a different day or different hour. So I'm packing up trash to take to the closest one to me, and it's always on the day that it's closed. And so we think about that. I contacted 5 other localities. When their county is shut down, then their site is shut down for holidays. And so that would be a saving. And also the e-cycling, and we talked about that one time before. But at the end of the day, if we have e-cycling even quarterly, we said twice a year, but if we had it 3 times a year, you can bring unlimited items. Whereas if you go to 618 and you have 2 TVs, I'm telling you, they're not going to take that second TV home because they don't know that they can't dispose of 2. And so the savings of having an e-cycling event and notifying the citizens of the county, and then they know, okay, I can bring all of this on this day, i.e. like we do shredding or tires, like we do that, then we have designated times. So then we can say, we already know when it's going to be. They already know that it's free to them. They already know that it's unlimited. And so those are the 4 items that, I mean, all of them to include the ordinance. I understand the feeling of the board, and to Mr. Steer's point, I wasn't a board of supervisor when they did it, and so it had to have been a need. At least these gentlemen thought it was a need. But I think if we do a blast with the other items, we do a campaign. We give Clean County the opportunity to get out and shine and help with this campaign. We arm our citizens with the information that they need, and so everybody's on the same schedule. Everybody's aware of it, and we try for a year and see how much money we actually save. I mean, maybe to this board, $58,000 is not a lot, but it could be put to salaries. It could be put to good use for something else, and it surely can be a roadmap to try to reduce the costs so that we don't have to be like the other localities and charge people to dump their trash. That's my ask. Don't make me plead.
Well, the ordinance was passed in August of '07, and I started in January of '08, so it wasn't that long. And
Barely got past that one.
yeah, but I guess the concern I have is close on Monday, people start throwing stuff on the side of the road. I mean, I hear it all the time. The only benefit I get from the county is being able to dump my trash. Plus, with the reassessment year, and everybody saying I'm paying all this more taxes, which until if we decide to raise the equalized rate, they're not typically. But anyway, it's up to the board how they feel. I mean, I do think getting all the refuge sites on the same schedule time is probably a good idea.
So you agree with me?
No, I do not.
So my ask.
Well, the
Mrs.
thing I don't want to see is it gets to be so confusing to the citizens. It's like this dump's open on Monday, this one's closed on Tuesday. That I'd hate to see that. I think it needs to be uniform. I mean, if we're gonna have Mondays closed, they're all closed on Monday. One drawback to me in having it closed on holidays that are recognized by the county is a lot of times that's when people have time to clean up their yard or clean up their shed or whatever, and they need to go to the dump. And it's like, okay, well, can't go to the dump because they're closed today. I mean, stuff like that. There's sometimes we just have to kind of bite the bullet for convenience for the citizens, kind of a little bit, Mrs. Page.
So can we bite the bullet today on the ordinance? My ask is, can we do a pilot? Can we do the pilot to standardize the hours and the days? Can we do, if Monday is Memorial Day, you have, because we could be closed on Monday anyway, because that's my other ask, we be closed on Monday. But if you know that holiday, then you still you get off Friday evening, Saturday, and Sunday. And so the holiday, bam, you don't have to worry about cleaning up. So we're giving the citizens the opportunity to enjoy their holiday to the fullest because they don't have to do the list of things, which is awesome. And then we're going to do a campaign using Clean County, Mr. Lockwood, and Central Virginia Waste Management so that we can, i.e., a program that succeeded very well this year was our Commissioner's Office explaining the equalization rates and all of this kind of stuff. So, I mean, we can do that kind of campaign to arm our citizens with everything they need. They're knowledgeable. They know what's going on. They know that, okay, hold on to your small appliances, your electronics, but at this particular date and this place, this is where we're going to take them. Even if that place happens to be at 18, but you know that whatever you got, you can bring that day. And if you ever seen a recycling event, they absolutely full up for that day. That in itself versus when you go over there and you got a line of stuff that's just waiting and I hope they come take it someday. Or the other inconvenience is that you have so much trash over there that it can't be dumped, so then a site is closed down. So we already talking about we're going to save costs by not paying overtime, by standardizing our days, by giving them, it's uniform. Some people think when the county closed, the dump closed anyway. But if we never try, so I'm just asking for a pilot
So you're looking at items 2 through 5. We're not gonna touch the ordinance today. Is that what you're saying?
Y'all can touch it, but I'm telling you what I'm touching.
Well, you're saying, what you're asking, items 2 through 4. We
Can't touch
standardize
it.
the days.
Yeah.
Put your mic.
Thank you. Standardize the days, close all on the same day,
And do e-cycling.
e-cycling and the holidays. I'm cool with that.
And with this ordinance, though, I can tell you, unlike most of you, I have a vehicle that will stop running at any given moment. I have sit at that main dump, and I'm telling you, I have watched them come in, and I know it was the same truck 4 times. You know, I get it. I know that we're doing it. However, I know that we're supposed to provide a service, and so I get that. I noticed the phone calls and all of that. But so that's why I'm leaving that to your expertise and being a team player on that part. And I'm asking you to be a team player on this other part.
And if I may add just a footnote, you said the reason that the charges are going up is because the lack of landfills.
Well,
Is that right?
It's the world of trash. It's
Right.
how much it's costing to get to the landfills. A lot of that. I mean, just like we heard today, you got fuel costs going up. They can't find people to work. They got minimum wages going up. So as the companies themselves are incurring costs, then they're passing the costs on.
Right.
And that's a lot of it.
But the footnote I wanted to add was don't forget that these solar farms, when they have lived out their life expectancy, the panels go into landfills. Just
Well,
thought
I
I'd
can-
throw that in there.
I can tell you that the Central Virginia Waste Management has already thought of that. They were lobbying this year, and a bill was defeated regarding solar farms and solar panels going into landfills. I think e-cycling itself had 400 and some bills to include the plastic and soft plastic. So, I mean, it's not a subject that's lost. It's just that you can't just throw your trash in a barrel and burn it anymore, or you try to keep trash off of the roads, and the vendors know that. And they know that, hey, either y'all pay for it, or it's up to you, whatever you want to do. They did have a locality that said, hey, we're not going to be a part of Central Virginia Waste Management. We're going to do our own collection thing. And that didn't work. That changed within the year itself. And so I am absolutely a fan of what Mr. Stewart wants to do. I understand it. However, I do have compassion and empathy for our citizens, because I'm a frequent flyer at the dump. But I'm obeying the ordinance. I want you to know. But it's a cost that I think that as a county, we have to look at every way possible we can to still deliver a service for free. However, think about the cost of that service, because we know free isn't free.
All right. Okay, I think we've beaten this to death. For me, I probably could try number 5, but I mean, don't get me wrong, $58,000 is a lot of money, but in the scheme of our budget, it's kind of, it's pennies on the dollar. But it's not worth. I mean, I'm going to tell you, people are going to call you, some of your friends, and said, when he starts enforcing that, he should be enforcing. That's why you're not enforcing now, probably because they're calling a supervisor, and then the supervisor tells you to dump, then the attendant out there gets ticked off and calls you. And am I right on that? And I'm just worried about then they come and dump it all, illegal dumping, and then we have a whole other issue that we have to deal with. But anyway, it's at the pleasure of the board. I think we beat it enough. If I don't know how everybody else feels.
So what are you saying? You just want to do number 5?
I I mean, that's just,
What are you saying?
I can support number 5, maybe. And I can support coming back with some type of plan with, keeping changing the hours. It might be a little more money, I guess, if you open them all more, some type of, consistency of opening, having all the refuge sites the same hours. And
That's what we're proposing, that all sites would be open from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. daily. All sites, excluding Mondays, where we'd be closed.
Or would it be the savings of opening 8 to 6, 7 days a week?
I'd have to figure that out. But I will, and we'll get back.
Probably
to
not
you.
much, right?
Yeah.
Is the day that you're closed the day that they typically transition come and empty the dumpsters and all that stuff, or does that happen all the time?
Yeah, we're dumping every single day.
Okay.
The sites on Route 612 and 618. I mean, it's just a massive influx and outflux of trash dumps.
So what's that going to do to you? I mean, you're going to close that one day, and everybody's still going to have the same amount of trash, and they're just going to pile in there the following day.
Well, and that's fine, but that does give us the opportunity to keep the site clean, the opportunity to repair some of the items that are in disrepair out there currently, because when the site is active, it's just impossible. I mean, you've got traffic flowing in and out, but we've got safety cables out there that need to be repaired, bollards that are in disrepair, all those things. And when the site is open 7 days a week, when can you do that? When can you do that? And the reason we're suggesting Mondays, I'm not married to Mondays, but most of our county holidays fall on Mondays. So I thought that would be the wiser choice.
Okay, so let me come back to my statement, Mr. Chair.
Rose, you might have support. Sounds like Ms. Lockwood's got support, and I don't know when Mr. Steers and Mr. Tiller are.
So let me help Mr. Stewart. And I know that Mr. Steers is a fan of Mr. Stewart. So as you said, Mr. Steers, we're going to now eliminate the confusion of this site being open on Thursday, this site being closed on Wednesday, because everybody will be open the same day, the same time, and everybody is closed the same day. So what we're saying is every site is closed one day. The days are just staggered. But this will standardize so that every site will have the same hour, every site will be open, and every site will be closed on that day. Now, I will give up closure on all holidays at this time. I'll give up the ordinance.
Well, ordinance is there, so.
Yeah. There you go. And we do the e-cycling events.
So we're gonna.
Can I make a motion?
Does it require a motion?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I have a motion. I move that we,
I have a question.
oh, I'm sorry.
How can you make a motion to violate an ordinance?
You can't do anything on number 1.
Do what?
My motion doesn't include the ordinance.
The ordinance is in place. That's I mean, there's nothing you can do with that unless you do a public hearing to change that. No.
My motion doesn't include the ordinance. Or does it?
No.
Okay, it doesn't include this.
This is just more operational changes.
Yeah.
And when does this go into
I'd like
effect?
to add, yes, I was just getting ready to state that ideally, probably July 1, but no sooner than June 1st. We would like some time to post notices at all the sites and do some outreach on social media as well.
Very good.
Mr. Chairman, and I don't want to be the devil's advocate, but I am. If we close one day a week across the board, and you say you'd use those days for cleanup, you were gonna close once a week, 1 day a week, to save money. But how are we gonna get in there to clean them up if you're gonna have employees that aren't working that day to clean up the sites?
None of the, that's a great question, but none of the raw salary savings include the refuse and recycling supervisor. That's the position that would be doing the cleaning and repairing out there. So all of these savings are minus that position.
All right, now, next. So if we close on all the holidays, we're given holidays on the Mondays, whatever, that would be another day that would be used for cleanup. But if we're closed, we still can't go in there to clean up because you don't have any employees working.
No, sir, that the holidays would not be a day for cleanup. Holiday, that position is a full-time benefited employee, so that person would be off. So if it is a county holiday and we're recognizing it, we would not expect our staff members to be out on the site cleaning up or making repairs.
All right, and last, if we do this, and those days that were closed are going to be used strictly for cleanup and maintenance, I'd really like to see a big improvement on how clean these dump sites are. I'm at 618. I'm a frequent flyer there. They know me by name. And it's not often that you go by there and that the site is actually clean. There's always trash up against the fence, trash around the dumpsters. And I know it's a busy place, but it's usually just one dumpster open at a time there. And a lot of times there's only one dumpster there. And understand that. That would be my biggest complaint. It's just how, and I know it's a dump, but how dirty the dump is and how bad they generally look. So hopefully that happens in the way that Ms. Page wants it to. I hope there's a significant change in the way these places look because they are unsightly. But
I agree. I just, one thing I want to mention, the county's growing. There's no question. The population's growing. And we've had the same refuge sites for how long? What I really think is we really need a new refuge sites down in Browns Bridge somewhere. And we're getting ready to close it one day with the population of New Kent growing. And you're having problems getting trucks, your trash hauled and everything. I can just see on Tuesdays, Wednesdays, you're already closing down the dump. We get those emails where you're closing down the dump. And come Tuesday, Wednesday, you're going to have to close it down when everything's at capacity because I know finding truck drivers are hard. And I'm sure that's probably the main reason that you're not getting the pulls because Waste Management's having hard time finding truck drivers. But anyway, it's the pleasure of the board. I just had to say my piece. Ms. Page, you have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I have a motion. Mr. Chair, I move that our county sites standardize their days and hours of operation and that all of the sites will be closed on Mondays. That they will transition to e-cycling to semi-annual or quarterly events. And this will take effect not earlier than July 1st, 2022.
Okay. Any discussion?
No.
Is there a second motion on maybe number 5?
That includes number 5.
he wants to just include supplementation.
But anyway,
And what was number 5?
that's all right. We'll take a vote.
We could do that. So you want to try first with you?
Why don't we vote on this one? Because you can always.
Let's see what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where are you with number 5?
Just to do the
E-cycling. All right, we have a motion on the table.
I didn't put holidays in there.
Ms. Watkins, we poll the members.
Mr. Tiller,
No.
Ms. Page,
Aye.
Mr. Steers,
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood,
Aye.
and Mr. Evelyn.
No. All right.
So when we get phone calls, I'm going to give y'all's numbers.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir.
Item 3, New Kent County Design Build Procedures. Mr. Hathaway.
Our county attorney's going to lead us in that one.
All right, Mr. Hefty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Hathaway. The state code allows design build as a method of procurement. It's an alternative method to the standard design bid build, which is where you hire an architect separately and award the contract to a low bidder. This is an alternative method that allows you to both design and build the public project, and it arguably makes it faster because you can design and build at the same time. If you recall, it's the way we designed and built the fire station next to the visitor center. The state code requires us to have a local procedure for design build that is consistent with the state procedure at the Department of General Services. The last time we did this policy was in 2017. The state has updated their policy since then, so I've made some technical amendments to the policy. Nothing major substantively. It still involves a two-part policy, which involves issuing a request for quotes, getting companies to submit to that, and then selecting among those to issue an RFP, and then ultimately you choose the company, the design builder you want to have based on the best value. It's a good method, and the fire department would like to use this method for their construction of the fire station number 4, I think it is, that's upcoming. So these changes are technical changes that I've made to make our policy consistent with the state as required. And if you adopt these, which you would need a motion to do, then the staff at the fire department can issue the solicitation and start that process. With that, I'll be happy to answer any questions you have, but that is the matter before you.
Any questions? Yeah, not a whole lot we do.
Yeah. This is part of the state code. Yep. If you wish to do design build, you need to update these procedures. Yep.
All right. Anybody have a motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Tiller?
I move to approve the amended New Kent County design build procedures based on the new requirements set forth in section 2.2-4380 and 2.2-4382 of the Code of Virginia.
Thank you, Ms. Tiller. Any discussion? If not, Ms. Watkins, poll the members, please.
Ms. Page? Aye. Mr. Steers? Aye. Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. Next item, which probably is going to be a lot busier now. Roadside litter pickup and removal services contract.
No comment.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
We'll go to 5 first.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. As you are aware, the county advertised an invitation for bid for roadside litter pickup and removal services after our previous contractor expressed to us that they could no longer fulfill the terms of their contract. So we did re-advertise. We received 2 proposals. Staff is going with the low bid, and we're recommending that the county enter into contract with ProStar Enterprise Incorporated for roadside litter removal services. Their rate for 2-sided road is $69 per mile. For roads with medians, $109 per mile, which is an average bid per mile of $89 per mile. It is more than the previous contractor, but I believe the previous contractor's price was the reason they could no longer fulfill the terms of their contract. I think this is a reasonable price. ProStar currently has a considerable amount of experience working with VDOT, with roadside litter pickup, and also mowing services as well. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Lockwood?
I noticed in the contract that there was the same 3 times a year for pickup, and it looks like the first one coming up would be, or the next one coming up would be August. I know the last contractor did a kind of a sweep through the county to sort of fulfill their last obligation for the March pickup. And I've had a lot of complaints about the job they did. So I would like to see that maybe we go ahead and schedule one for June, maybe May even if we can, to try to get off on a good start for the beginning of spring, summer, before they start mowing again and just blasting trash to little pieces. So I'd like to see us maybe move forward with another pickup earlier than waiting till August.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Page?
So I asked VDOT at our board meeting if they were going to pick up trash when they mowed the grass. And they said that they were going to do that. So maybe if we do an earlier one, we'll see when they mow the grass, and that can determine if we do the August or we add another one later, if they do that. But you can work the schedule, correct?
Yes, we have flexibility in our contract to allow for additional pickups, and I will coordinate with VDOT. I think they're gearing up right now for the first cut, so maybe a June to go behind that would be a good time, but I can definitely coordinate with VDOT.
Yeah, I doubt they're going to want to get in that tall grass and try to pick through, if you could coordinate through VDOT, hopefully see how they pick up, but I'm all for that. I have the same complaints as you have with the trash.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, what's the total cost per cut or per cleanup? Is it $12,476 each time? Is that right, or
No, it's
more than that?
And I didn't calculate that, but it's about a little over $20,000 per cut.
Okay.
I actually think it's around $25,000 per cut.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry,
I know,
per
I
pickup.
threw
We were
you
just
off, I'm
talking
sorry.
VDOT. So,
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Entertain a motion?
If I can add one more thing, with this contract, just to remind you, it does allow for on-call services too. So if there's any areas in your district, even if it's a small little section that needs attention, please let me know, and we can get our contractor out for that as well.
And you did say that they also do mowing.
No.
Well, this contract doesn't involve mowing. This company does mowing with VDOT, but that's not part of our contract.
But they do offer mowing, right?
They do.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Lockwood?
if there's no further discussion, I'd like to make a motion.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I move to authorize the county administrator to execute the proposed contract with ProStar Enterprises, Inc. for roadside litter pickup and removal services.
Thank you, Mr. Lockwood. Ms. Watkins, will you poll the members?
Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
Ms. Page?
Aye.
And Mr. Edelman?
Aye. Next item, New Kent Personnel Policies and Procedures. Manual update. Mr. Hathaway.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I am pinch hitting today for our HR director, who is currently at a conference. But you have before you proposed changes to our personnel policies manual. These changes reflect changes to state and federal laws that have been adopted and changed since the adoption of this manual in January 2020. It also provides consistency with our current practices. The main change in this document is the elimination of comp time, which we've discussed as a board previously, that we've put into place, but we haven't updated the personnel policies manual. And comp time is referenced throughout our personnel policies manual, so you'll see a lot of changes and strikes and deletions throughout the manual where there is reference to comp time. Other changes that are involved, and I can go over them very briefly. There are some federal changes to military leave and service member family and medical leave act. And those changes are incorporated into the personnel policies manual. If you're a spouse now of a military service member, you are entitled to certain protections under the Service Member Family and Medical Leave Act, and we've included that into our policy. We have amended, and it's not a change at all in the way we currently operate, our holiday leave. As far as for certain departments, we front load leave, holiday leave, but we've made the section more specific as to which employees are permitted to have their holiday leave front loaded. And when I say front loaded, it means instead of taking your leave throughout the year, you're given your 12 days or 13 days, however many days it is, up front, so you can use them throughout the year at any time and not just on that holiday. That flexibility is very helpful for those employees that are required to work on holidays. So they usually can't take their holiday leave on that holiday because they're required to be working, mainly our public safety staff. So they can take that leave anytime throughout the year. We did include some guidance, though, as if that service member leaves prior to that year, they do not get paid out the remainder of the unused leave. And that's currently our practice now, but we've put that in writing and included that in our policies manual. We've added additional guidance as far as the submission of timesheets. When this document was passed, we weren't using our NovaTime, our online timesheet system. And now that we have moved to an online timesheet system, we've added additional guidance for the submission of timesheets. We've added guidance on how to report problems with your pay. If there's an issue with your paycheck, we've implemented a process in place just to make sure nothing falls through the cracks. You may talk to a staff member that might not be the right staff member to bring that issue up to, and we just want to make sure nothing falls through the cracks, and we address all timesheet and pay issues. We've added language about communicating delayed openings and closings. We've added social media to that list. Currently, we use social media currently. We just included that into our policies manual. We removed the section that deals with additional holiday and overtime pay procedures as it relates to on-call employees and how they get called back. This was a duplicate section. The exact same guidance was in our on-call section of our ordinance. So just to eliminate the duplicate sections, we've removed that. I believe that is, and the other item is sick leave and the payout of sick leave. It's been our practice, and we have been capping our sick leave payout when a member separates with the county to $2,500. It was in the previous personnel policies manual, but when this new manual got adopted, that language was taken out. Even though we've continued to practice it, we've put that back into this document. And those are the changes that are being proposed in the policies manual.
All right. guess I assume you met with all directors and everything and went over this.
With this, I don't believe our HR director has, because there were no, and I believe the thinking behind that was there was no new change or new policies
Okay.
being implemented. This was just clean up, and it doesn't change how we're currently practicing.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Hathaway? None, I entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Lockwood,
I move to adopt the proposed amendments to the New Kent Personnel Policies and Procedure Manual.
thank you, Mr. Lockwood. Any other discussion? If none, Ms. Watkins, poll the members.
Mr. Lockwood? Aye. Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
Ms. Page?
Aye.
Mr. Steers?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. We're going to take a 5-minute recess. Sorry. Call the meeting back to order. Next item is the personal property update and FY '23 budget. Commissioner of Revenue, Ms. Achimovich, and Mr. Hathaway. Morning.
It's on now?
Yep.
I usually don't need a mic, but.
Well, it's for the public to hear.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, Rodney, could you pass these around? So, my fund began in January. As you know, it's a reassessment year. So, we have finalized all of the appeals with that. And we had about a third in total number of our regular appeals status. And I guess the finalization for the Board of Equalization will be this week, so we'll know how many appeals we have continuing on the real estate. But at the same time, I was notified by J.D. Power and Associates, which is formerly known as NADA, or what we commonly call the NADA guides, that they fully expected an additional 30 to 35% increase on vehicle prices due to the lack of chips. Used vehicles continue to climb. New vehicles are being produced without the chips. So I was looking forward to this year to see how that really impacted. What's in front of you, I'm just going to brief that last year's total was $307 million, just slightly over that. This year's total value of vehicles is $429 million, which is about a 40% increase in overall. Now, some of that's growth. So we have over 5,500 new vehicles. Seeing this coming, the Commissioners Association did lobby legislature to allow boards to be able to make an accommodation for these increases in vehicles. In the past, vehicles had to maintain the same property rate as your general property rate, and the other property rates could not be higher than your general property rate. But the Virginia Assembly did pass legislation this year allowing boards up until through the year 2024, it's an emergency in effect for this purpose, the ability to modify the rate of taxes on the vehicles. These are your total numbers for the types of personal property we have. I need to caveat that business equipment is not yet in. Those returns are due by May 2nd, and we will start looking through them. So I remained flat on the business equipment, which are the exact totals from last year. If you look at the second page, this is the best example that I can give you of what's going on. We have over $122 million value increase in the overall. The average personal vehicle in 2021 was $9,374. Those same vehicles this year are averaging $11,962, or a 27.6% increase in value. But that's not the only thing in effect here, because we have personal property tax relief. So it's not just the 30%, because as our community grows and that dollar grows, our $2.2 million in personal property tax relief decreases per person. So in the example I've given you below, for instance, in 2021, that vehicle at $93.74 would have produced a tax of $351.53. The PPTRA tax rate was 31.9, would have given them a $112.14 discount, meaning the taxpayer would be responsible for $239.39. That same vehicle valued at $11,962 this year at the same tax rate produces a tax of $448.58, we would have to reduce the PPTRA to 24.4% for a negative 109.45. The taxpayer would then pay $339.13 for the same vehicle that they paid $239 the year before, an effective increase of 41.7%. What I am suggesting is that the board considers taking advantage of the the enactment to allow you to reduce that personal property rate so that our citizens will be made whole. So what I did for you is took every vehicle that we valued last year and determined what the rate would need to be on just those that existed here last year to make the same amount of money, and that is a $3 rate versus the $3.75. What the $3 rate does not do, if you look on the second sheet passed out, that would still estimate that our PPTRA would be about 30.4%, because we still have all those new vehicles that were not, and it gets spread amongst everybody evenly. So the $3 rate would produce the same amount of money. As you see, the same vehicle valued at $11,962 at a $3 rate is $358 versus the $351. It's pretty close. But with a 30.4% PPTR rate, they lose overall about $10. So that would be about a $10, and it's not a perfect science because these are averages. Some vehicles may have gone up more than this. Others may not have gone up as much. So I can only work with the totals and the averages to give you a window. The actual rate that produces, I guess, slightly below or keeps our PPTRA rate near is $2.85, which is the secondary example, where it would produce $340.92, which is about $7.90 lower once you apply a 32.1% PPTRA rate, which is slightly higher than the prior year. It was 31.9, 32.1. It was about as close as I could get to that. Now, what does this all mean for your budget? If you look at the very bottom, if you were to take any of my recommendations, I have calculated the mobile home rate at 66 cents since you have not landed on or passed a real estate tax rate. I went ahead and went with the less. If you look at mobile homes, single-wide mobile homes, doesn't matter what the real estate rate, it's going to maybe cost you a couple $1,000s one way or the other. So that's going to have little effect on the overall personal property mobile homes. Business equipment to remain at $375, machinery and tools to remain at $75, aircraft to remain at $75, boats, campers, and utility trailers. When I equalized their rates, it was just under $3.25, so that's the rate I'm recommending there. They also experienced increases. Vehicles at $3, volunteer vehicles are always half the full rate, so at $150. Producing a PPTRA rate of 30.4 would net $12,874,235, which is $1.794 million over last year. So it's still in excess because you still have those new vehicles and new items that have come online. If you were to consider a rate of $2.85, that secondary line at 32, that would produce $12,345,215, which is 1.265 over the prior year total. So it's still a significant increase, even if you drop the rate. If you don't drop the rate, it is an effective tax increase. I will tell you that probably 80% of the other communities have committed to make some reduction, whether they pass an ordinance to reduce. I'm not allowed to reduce assessments. I have to use a recognized pricing guide, and we have always used the lowest value in the book. Where other commissioners were using a high retail, they could drop theirs down to a low retail. I'm already at the lowest retail price in the book, and we have been for decades. We've always used the lowest or loan value. So there's nowhere for me to go. The Attorney General's opinion is the only board authorized to do percentages of that value would be yourselves. So you could choose to do a percentage, and a few communities have done that, but by far most have done just an exchange on the rate as a temporary. This can only go through right now again for the next few years unless they extend it, because if prices continue to climb, they may choose to extend it. But right now, the board only has this option for a few years. There are only a few counties who are taking the windfall. If you choose not to do anything, it's a $4.6 million difference in tax revenues. So that's a significant increase on daily cars that your constituents are driving, that they're already paying how much for gas to get back and forth to work. So I am asking that the board consider one of these suggested rates that I feel make our constituents whole.
All right, thank you. That is a very huge increase, that's for sure. I'm sure we're going to have some questions for the commissioner. Ms. Page?
I just had one question. So each year we would decide, you said the next several years, our decision would be based on this budget year, or would we come back every year to?
As in every year, you pass rates.
Okay.
Typically, our personal property rate hasn't moved.
Okay.
I can't even tell you when it wasn't 375, right? It's been that for years, but you do have that option every year, just like you do in real estate. So what you are considering is only for this year, and we would have to revisit it for the prior year. And I would like to suggest that I'm getting ready to mail out the notices of assessment here in the next 2 or 3 weeks. I would like to include a cover letter with that, explaining some of the actions that we are taking, and hopefully we are on this journey together. I just needed you to be aware of that it is going to be a substantial if you don't consider reducing the rate. Of course, it is at your option to what levels. The levels I have suggested, I think, make people whole or close to what their tax bills were in the prior year.
And with that's going to make them whole. Plus, what's on with what's new, we're still going to be well over $1 million.
You're not giving up your growth,
right?
Because all I considered were items that were taxed in the previous year, not any of the new items to produce the same amount of money from those items that they produced the prior year. So all of the additional is just growth.
From January 1st this year.
Over 5,500 new vehicles. We typically run about 900 campers, and there were like 200 new campers last year alone. Phenomenal growth in numbers. I have also included in this a $4.3 million assessment reduction, because we do go through a process of sending these out. As you well know, you all get yours, to look over. Do you agree with this? And I know there's going to be some adjustments. With the value so high, I'm not sure if it'll be a typical adjustment year or not. So we are considering having some drive-by clinics for condition where people can come up, and my staff will be, reviewing their vehicle if they feel that their condition is not average.
Ms. Lockwood?
Mr. Chairman, Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I'm on the right page here.
Sure.
So,
Lot of
Are-
numbers.
I'm on page 1.
You're on page 1.
So I just want to make sure I understand.
Sure.
Are you calling the $3 rate the equalized rate, so to speak?
It was funny when I watched that your video and you wondered, because that's exactly what I was working on. It would be the equivalent.
Of an equalized
Yeah,
rate.
even though they don't call it that in personal property, nor
Right.
is it required, but it is an equalized rate is always about what makes people whole in general, or to produce the same amount of money for the county in total. That can impact individuals differently.
Right. So for the most part, you're going to get the same tax bill you got last year for the same vehicle if you still have it. If we go to the $3 rate.
At 3, they might be slightly, as you can see, the average person would be about $10 off because of the PPTRA, but there's not going to be a perfect science, because I have the same amount of PPTRA, and also I don't apply that till my adjustments come in, so that rate could go up if the value, goes down.
And at 285, we're comfortable that pretty much everybody's bill is going to be flat to last year.
Probably a little less. So you see that it's about the same, distance.
Right.
I don't know why I didn't work up. 285 became the closest to the PPTRA rate of last year. That's the reason why I targeted that one. $3 is the technical rate that produces the same amount of funds from the tax bill side.
And in a real world situation or normal world situation, if there is such a thing anymore, people would expect their tax bill to go down a little bit with the depreciation of the vehicle from one year to the next, as opposed to the new world order where your old car gets more valuable.
I think they're accustomed to their value either staying the same or going down. It's more of a value thing because, again, the board always has the option of changing a rate.
Right, but we haven't changed the rate in a long time.
We haven't.
So
So here in New Kent, yes, you could probably say that they expect it to go down, but because our PPTRA funds have been running short, I would say for the past 5 years, everybody's been paying about the same thing or a little bit more because they've lost personal property tax relief due to growth.
And to your point, the world knows that
stuff is worth more.
that my old vehicles are worth more now. I mean, people are getting rid of their used vehicles and buying new vehicles because they got all the commercials that tell them we're going to pay you this much for your used vehicles. So
And they do.
Absolutely, and they do. So with that being said, it has to be an expectation that your tax bill is going to be somewhat higher.
And then just to finish up, so if we go with the $3 rate, we're sort of equalized.
We are.
And
we are.
we're still netting almost $1.8 million more than last year.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Exactly.
Yep.
And I'll have, again, these are our first numbers, but I've gone through them several times just because it was so big. I was very shocked. I was expecting maybe 25%. It's 40% increase.
And in my understanding, that's also including cutting the rate on boats and campers.
Boats and
Right.
campers to 325 from 37. Boats, campers, and utility trailers to 325. There are some varying rates in there. I just took them as a whole because I look at them as more of either work or recreational. A lot of our utility trailers are boat trailers, honestly. To haul all the boats.
Unless he lives on his boat.
Yeah. Well, you can see in the new columns, which business equipment doesn't have any of growth, but, in the boats, utility trailers, and campers, there's almost 1,258 new.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you.
Well, and I think you can see on the bottom that it kind of gives you, if you're looking at other options, that every 10 cents on vehicles will generate $352,000 in revenue. That's just on the vehicles, not on campers or not on the whole. It's more if it's on the whole. So.
Well, this is good information. Thank you very much. And I guess we're going to the budget and kind of look, see what we want to do moving forward.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your hard work.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about that because I'm just hearing that number, but it's a good thing for us. And first, I'll kind of sum up what we just heard. You know, at the $3 rate, that's an additional roughly $1.8 million of personal property tax revenue. And the budget that I presented to you back in March, we made some assumptions on personal property tax. And in the information that you have before you today, those same assumptions are included. And that's of an additional $1,563,933 of personal property tax. So what that means is at the $3 option, you still have an additional $200,000 roughly of revenue that's not included in my recommendations here. Now, if you drop to the $2.85 option that's before you, we'll have to make about $300,000 in cuts because my presumption is about $300,000 over what the actual revenues would be. So we're in a really good position overall. And I want to kind of recap from our budget retreat on the directions that I received from the board. And that was, at the time, you did not feel comfortable with the 69-cent rate I proposed. And I was asked to go back and work on a 67-cent rate. And you have that option in column 2. Column 1 of the spreadsheet is my original proposal from March. Column 2 is the direction that I received to bring you a 67-cent rate. And then there is a third column that is a 68-cent rate. But with that, it includes a recommendation from our sheriff's office for some additional staffing. I'll start with the 67-cent rate. That does set aside $1,275,992 for our salary study to implement the results of our salary study.
Mr. I don't mean to cut you off, but I'd just like to get a feel from the board on what we just heard. I mean, you kind of gave an overview of the 3 options.
Sure.
Are we all in agreement that we would consider the $3, $2.85, somewhere in that neighborhood, and everybody's okay with cutting that personal property? Okay, I just want to make sure. Sorry about that.
Good.
Well, yeah.
That's good.
Thank you.
All right. The main change from the 69 to 67-cent option is your personnel line item and the personnel adjustments. With the 67-cent option, you can see that all of the deputies, the sheriff's positions were removed. To stay within that budget, the fire lieutenant upgrades were removed. I also removed the minimum wage increase adjustments. That's only because we're going to address minimum wage in the salary study implementation, so we didn't need to set aside that money there. It's already included in the salary study. With what will be proposed, all salaries will be above the minimum wage requirement. Now, we did have identify some additional revenue. As we've gotten updated numbers on real estate, we plugged those in, but that was eaten up kind of quickly with the new planning director position that was created too, and that is added to the 67-cent option and the 68-cent option. The only difference in the 68-cent option is that it adds 4 new patrol deputies, a school resource officer, which we've applied for a grant for, so we may not need this funding, but we don't know as of yet. It also adds a dispatcher position. It upgrades an administrative assistant in the sheriff's office from part-time to full-time, and we've included the funding necessary to support those new positions. That's the $44,982, and in the columns on the far right, it's a breakdown of the costs involved in supporting those new positions. Those are the differences, and you have 2 options, or 3, but it seems like you're leaning towards either the 67 or 68-cent option. And again, the only difference between the 2 is the added sheriff positions. Now, with the additional penny, it didn't fully cover those positions. So you'll see that the salary study is reduced from $1.275 to $1.171 million to cover the difference. But with the new numbers that we just received, again, you'll have an additional $200,000 as well to plug into this budget. I would just like to remind you that the schools originally came to you with a $2 million ask. In my budget, my proposal in March, I cut it to 1.8. It's now been cut to 1.2. So you may want to consider sharing a portion of that $200,000 with the schools.
Mr. Chair.
Ms. Loughlin?
I believe it was me that asked that we get as close to the 67 as possible.
66.
66, yes, the equalized rate. Since then, I've had the opportunity to talk to the Sheriff's Department, and that's, I guess, part of the reason why we've got some of these and sitting in front of us at the 68 cents. I think that in this time and this age of cutting the funding to sheriff's departments and law enforcement in general, and just with the type of world we heard the courts talking about, the way things are, people are just not seeming to be as friendly as they used to be. It's made that department's job that much harder. So I would like to see us moving towards the 68-cent column, and fully funding the request that the Sheriff's Department made for personnel, including the increase in the number of patrol deputies. And I think that we can do it well within the number that we're looking at. The additional revenue we heard from, as well as we still don't have a state budget that's been submitted, and we don't know what kind of funding we're going to get. Hopefully it's not going to go down when we start talking about the surpluses that are available. So I'd like to see us moving towards fully funding the sheriff's request. We've put off in the past years some of the requests that he's made, and dramatically reduced those requests. So if we're gonna increase it for any reason, I'd like to see it be that we do it to support our sheriff's department. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lockwood. Anyone else?
Mr. Chairman. I agree with Mr. Lockwood on this. I think that additional penny would be ideal at this time. I mean, we're dropping the rate 10 cent or 11 cent as it is, even at the 68 cent rate.
That'd be a 2 cents tax increase. Yeah.
It's a 2 cent tax increase with an 11 cent decrease in the rate. I know.
I'm not concerned about the rate.
Yeah, I know. I get that too. But as Mr. Lockwood said, this county's growing faster than anywhere else in the state of Virginia, and we're not keeping up with that growth by far. I mean, we still have a long ways to go, and I feel like this is a chance for us to catch up a little bit. I think we're still behind the curve, but I think this is a opportunity where we can do this, and instead of waiting any longer, I know next year probably a tax increase wouldn't be a good idea, but I just feel like this 68 cent accomplishes a lot more than we've ever been able to accomplish in 1 year in the past, as far as handling new employees, especially in the sheriff's department. So I'm in agreement with Mr. Lockwood on this. I think this is a good opportunity for us to play catch up, and especially in that department, and with some of the other positions that are coming along with that as well. So that's my 2 cents. No pun intended.
Mr. Hadley.
One more comment. You see an asterisk beside the fire rescue lieutenant upgrade. The reason that asterisk is there, even though no funding is being provided or is being shown right now, in a conversation with the sheriff, he's come to me and has made, the chief, he's come to me and has made some additional cuts within his operating budget, primarily the additional overtime that he's requested. And those cuts would equal the cost of providing the lieutenant upgrade. So therefore, I have included the lieutenant upgrades into his operating budget, utilizing the revenue saved by the additional cuts that he's identified. So these are included in the budget. Just wanted to be sure because this table doesn't clearly state that.
So,
Ms.
Mr.
Page?
Chair,
Yeah.
we're not making a decision on this today, right? So I don't have to really get into my rampage of my feelings about this.
No, I mean, the advertised rate is a 3 cents tax increase at 69 cents right now. Is what's being advertised, and we can go to public hearing at the 69 cents. That's what we'll be going to public hearing.
That's been advertised. Yes.
I think if you cut your mic off, it might stop. Maybe not. But you got this new information, and I think it gives staff some time to go back and play with it a little bit before we have have to make some final decisions. But we want to advertise. We want to go to public hearing in the May meeting, right?
Yes, sir.
The work session.
We would conduct a public hearing at the May regular meeting and consider adoption at the May work session.
So I just got one thing. I get an ask to stay at 66. Today I'm hearing 68, and then we want to make personal property whole. I'm confused. We want to lower one section of taxes, but we want to increase another. Isn't the citizen paying all the taxes anyway? And at the end of the day, and I haven't said that in a while, at the end of the day, what is that set aside? Are we taking into consideration what we're going to have to do as a county that's going to require funding? Are we, as a county, saving like we normally were saving for upcoming projects and staffing? And how close is the study number to where we needed to be for our current staff. We have been talking about all of the departments that have come after the budget request deadline. What about the departments that said, well, whatever you all tell me, I'm okay with that? They haven't come to us. We have absolutely said, Mr. County Administrator, Mr. Assistant County Administrator, Mr. Finance Department, Mr. Director or Ms. Director, whoever sat in it, we said, you know something? You all spend tons of hours. You went through tons of meetings. You worked out, because you know our financial situation. You worked this out for us. You took up your staff time to do this. You brought the recommendation to us. And then we said, well, you know, thank you, and we appreciate your time. Yeah, that's a good recommendation, but go back and do this. I think that looked like it contradicts what we say to me, just to me. I just have, I want to make sure, and my thought is and I appreciate all of our employees, and because I do, then I care too about those that are included in the salary study. I care about them. I care about the other offices that come year after year after year to say we need employees, and we said no, and we don't give them one employee. I care about that too. And maybe because the board didn't hear all the budget requests over the years, maybe you just don't know that. But I think we need to look at that as well. And then think about, we're going to decrease this to make us whole, but we're going to, decrease, now we're going to increase for a different reason. And I just take up issue with that. I think that if we're going to do this, then we need to look at another way. And we got time to look at that before we make our decision.
Ms. Steers?
Wow. You know, like it's been spoken, we don't have to make a decision today, but it seems like every time we have a meeting and we have Mr. Shimovich and Rodney working together, we keep finding more money in different tax rates and stuff like that. So you said if we kept the same rate, we'd have an extra $200,000. If we find another $200,000, that's a penny, right?
I doubt very seriously that we would find another 200,000. And it's just the way that our budget process works.
Right.
Very early in the process, we don't have final numbers. So we're just making a bunch of assumptions.
But are all the numbers final now?
I believe so.
Real estate other than Board of Equalization.
Right.
Personal properties at the very raw stage.
Raw stage?
Well, we valued everything.
Right.
We haven't sent it out to people for any kind of adjustment.
Right.
Again, I put in 4.3 million in adjustment, which is what I do when I estimate real estate, but our adjustments were lower than I estimated. Therefore, and that happens in every reassessment year.
Which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
I'd rather overestimate what the changes are than underestimate, and you all spend money that you don't actually have.
Right. But this is just the budget process, right?
It's always a working process.
It's always, every year I've been here, it's just, that's the way you work the budget.
Yeah.
It's a process. So we're still in it.
Personal property is a stable environment.
Yeah.
Last year was the first year I came to you and said, whoa, right?
Mm-hmm.
But this year it's that times 3.
Right. Okay. Thank you, sir.
The salary study.
Yes.
When are we going to, I think that's going to make a difference on, when are we going to have that so we can kind of put that into this process as well?
And I have the raw numbers, and I've developed a plan which I am hoping and we're planning on the consultant being here at the May meeting to present their final report to you. I don't have the final report yet, but I have their raw data, and that's what I've been able to build. Using their recommendations, that's what we've been able to build the salary study implementation plan. So we have a plan next month that will be presented to you.
Do you think we ought to have a meeting before that so we can kind of talk about it before at the public hearing so we can kind of?
You know, we're
mean,
kind of at the whim of the consultant's schedule. Currently, as of today, they do not have a final report. In fact, they're meeting with departments. I'm looking at the departments, the 10th and 11th. So they're still working through final numbers. So I'm not sure if we'll be ready before or much before the next regular meeting.
Well,
but I can share with you.
Next regular meeting's the 9th.
Well, then I can share with you, and I will send that out to each of you.
But I don't think it's still as final though. They haven't talked to the departments. They can't meet beforehand.
There's some cleanup as far as who meet beforehand.
They can't meet with the directors.
Consultants. I can check with the consultant. The 9th and the 10th, or 10th and 11th, were the dates that the consultant proposed to meet with departments, and I think it's based on availability, their availability. But I think,
aren't they working for us?
But they also have a schedule where they're working with other localities too, and I mean we're kind of working through that as well. We're not their only client.
Well, I think we'd have to have a special meeting if that's the same date in between then and by the time we vote on the budget. I mean, I don't know how the rest of the board members feels.
That in itself will make me feel better. I mean, we committed to do this salary study, so basically they're saying, except for the Board of Supervisors, we're going to do something with your salary. And and so that will make me feel better. We can't just do it and say, okay, so we did it, thank you.
Well,
you know.
And let me be clear. I mean, what you're voting on with the budget is just the set-aside amount that's going to go towards the salaries. If you guys want to have input on the individual increases, yeah, I mean, there's plenty of times. We don't have to implement that July 1. And when we implement it, we can catch people up and make it effective as of July 1, too, and backdate it. So we have some options there.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, and that's what I've said in the past, is no matter what the study shows, we don't have to jump to that salary in 1 year. We don't have to.
No, we don't.
We can tell employees that this is what the report shows. We will, in 2 years, 3 years, we will be at that level. And I think if they see that we're making an effort to pay them more money, I think they would be willing to work with us. That's what I think.
I'll just say, I think you'll be pleasantly pleased as far as where the consultants' recommendations are and where we are with set-asides. I think it's going to be a good thing. But yes, we can set that meeting up as a special meeting prior to the adoption of the budget, which would be your May work session. They should definitely have the final report by then. I think it's eye-opening too, and I really want to get the consultants in front of you, just to give you a better insight on our entire pay structure, because one of the things that I'm finding and looking at some of the preliminary results is we're bringing people on, hiring them at decent rates as far as where the market is, but they're not moving, our employees are not moving through our pay grade structure fast enough, adequately. There's a lot of stagnant positions within our pay grade structures, and that's something we need to work on. And we have a plan for that. That will be presented. So yes, we'll set that special meeting.
Okay, so we could do that at a work session because we're not going to pass the budget. We got to wait 30 days after the May 9th meeting to pass the budget. So we'll pass.
You have to wait 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks. But we can have a special meeting in between.
I just think we owe it to staff and directors because last year we kind of I felt like I made that promise to the directors and staff to consider, make a very much consideration and to try and do something to get everybody whole.
Mm-hmm.
And just maybe they can change their dates and move their dates up.
I'll check. I mean, I think the department head meetings are set right now, but we'll see if we can expedite.
Well, if they've all set, just
yeah.
maybe we can do a special meeting.
I will say, we heard a request from the clerk this morning. Those increases are not included in my budget recommendation as of yet. I mean, I feel responsibility to take care of county employees first and then do what we can for state employees. And I'm also concerned, where does that stop? Are we going to look at health department supplements, state trooper supplements? I mean, these are state employees that work in the county and does a great job in the county. But that has been my philosophy in previous years, especially knowing that our county staff is behind. That's, and they're in a tough situation because I know the state is telling them, we can't do anything for you. Go ask for money from the county. But just wanted you to be clear that currently no increase is proposed in the budget for the clerks.
All right. So we'll have public hearing on the budget on May 9th meeting, advertised at 69 cents. We'll give staff some time to go back and look at the information we got today, play with the numbers given by the commissioner's office, and we'll move on from there.
Okay.
All right.
The public hearing is May 9th. I think there was a reference to May 19th.
Oh, May 9th?
It's May 9th.
Right, yeah. Other business, Mr. Hathaway?
I do have one item for other business. Just a little scribble.
Man, you didn't print off enough. Look at that. A couple of sheets.
Sometimes when my mind goes elsewhere, filling in dots and oh, yes.
Oh, I have one, extra one. You gave me one.
I gave it to you. Okay. This is a big ticket item. In the FY23 budget request process, which is the budget planning for next year, I received a request from our IT department for the replacement of our backup networks. This is an essential component of our IT network that backs up everything on a nightly basis. We absolutely have to have this infrastructure. As a cost-saving item and a way to get from 69 cents to 67 cents, what I would like to propose is that we purchase this equipment in this current fiscal year's budget. We have the additional funding in our reserve for contingency. You, as usual, have been very frugal, I guess, in our spending, and we've tapped into our reserves very little this year. So we have the money in our reserves to purchase the software in this fiscal year. So therefore, it will be a savings in our budget for next fiscal year. We will not have to include that in our next fiscal year budget.
Did you say saving?
Yes. And there's an additional savings too. In conversations with the software firm, we've been told that if we can get them a purchase order by Friday this week, they're trying to get this in before the end of their quarter, we would get a $30,000 savings.
Did you say saving?
Yes. So I am recommending that we transfer $161,796 from our reserve for contingency line item to our information technologies professional services line item. This price is a 3-year price. It's not just a one-time purchase. This covers us, meaning that this one-time fee right here covers us for the next 3 years for backup.
Well, thank you, Mr. Hathaway. Anybody have any concerns about this? Questions?
You know, I got a question.
Ms. Page?
So is this a actual piece of equipment or is this like a software? My thing is where we put it. Oh,
Our IT director is here.
Yes.
it's like if it's equipment, where are we going to put it?
So we have an on-premise device here. It also replicates off-site into the cloud, but it's just a server. The actual device is on-premise here. Yeah, I mean, we've been using different systems over the years, but I don't know, probably around 2010, we went to this solution and got off a tape. So it's a server here, and the stuff backs up here, and it's then uploaded to the cloud.
Ms. Steers?
Yeah. And is that for a 3-year program?
I gave him different options, so I think he picked 3-year. Yes.
Well, if you added $45,000 to it, you get 5 years.
That's correct.
And we can do that.
What's that saving if we do it before Friday?
Well, we're still. I still haven't got that, but I always. I shouldn't say always because that's probably not true. But I do try, especially on major purchases, especially. The quote you have is for what we have now, but I'm looking at some other options, and if I can do it cheaper and get the same service, I will do it cheaper. I'm not. That was the quote that I had that I used for the budget. That's for the device that we have now.
And Jonathan, I guess one of the reasons I was a little hesitant with the 5-year is because technology changes so much. I mean, what's your preference?
The only problem that I foresee running into with the 5 years is the sizing. The device we have now, this one's probably, I think it's 3 times the size of the one we have that we got 3 years ago. And so if you do 5 years, you're limiting to that size, but we did increase it quite a bit because we've had to, some of our backups now are staggered, so we're not backing up as frequently just because we have ran out of space. So that's the one thing, because I love y'all, but y'all don't like to delete stuff. So it stays forever. But that's the only thing. And I think you would actually have enough capacity with this device to go for 5 years.
Thanks.
So you think you'd have enough capacity for 5 years?
Yes, sir. I think you could do any of those options, and it will save you if you do it. You know,
right.
Say how much you're paying per year. It does cut it quite a bit.
It does. It does.
Well, I would call this real savings.
So, are we looking at 5 years then, or?
The 5-year cost is $207,000, and an additional $40,000 for 2 more years. That's good savings. Yeah.
Plus, if we do it by Friday.
Yes.
Should be even.
He's
more
not
than
guaranteeing.
30.
He's not guaranteeing that. I guess the only concern I have.
It's on a state contract, I think. Yeah.
I guess the only concern I have is what you were talking about, Mr. Hathaway. Will be antiquated by the time 5 years from now. But
Should be antiquated before we sign the contract.
you can't guarantee that.
No, I could never guarantee that, but I can tell you, this is the same. So some of the stuff has changed, but it's the same technology we've been using since 2010 when we first went with eVault. The data's brought together on a server and deduplicated and all that stuff and encrypted and then uploaded to the cloud. So I can't promise you that in 4 years something else won't be out that would make this useless, but I think you're pretty safe. Here's what I can tell you. When he told me you cut that out of the budget for next year, or he had cut that out of the budget for next year, I can't work here without a backup solution. I just I would never be able to sleep. So I don't, 3 years, 5 years, whatever you want. If you want to do it this year, that's fine. But I've got to back up the data.
I'm gonna start deleting.
I think I'm the worst.
Give me.
All right, what's the pleasure of the board?
So if we did it for 5 years, it looked like if we did it for 5 years and it was an upgrade, it looked like because we had that contract, it would automatically upgrade the system anyway. No?
No,
It don't work like
we
that.
may be able to negotiate some credits to what we've already paid to go.
I'm good with the 3 year.
Yeah.
You're just limiting the size of the device here that you're purchasing, and that's the. And really, we've sized this one enough. I think we would be okay for 5 years. Although, I bought a server in 2007 that had probably a 50th of this storage, and I was amazed that we would never use all that, but it didn't take us long.
Mr. Chair, I have a motion. If it's no other discussion.
Yes, Ms. Page.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the $161,796 for the Barracuda backup server for IT.
Out of contingency.
Out of contingency.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Page. Ms. Watkins, will you poll the members?
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
Ms. Page?
Aye.
Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. Thanks, Jonathan. Anybody have anything else? The next regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Supervisors will be held at 6 p.m. on Monday, May 9th, 2022, and the next work session at 9 a.m. on Wednesday, May 25th, both in the boardroom of the County Administration Building. With that, do I have a motion for adjournment?
Mr. Teller?
Move to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Tiller. Ms. Watkins, will you poll the members?
Ms. Page?
Aye.
Mr. Steers?
Aye.
Mr. Lockwood?
Aye.
Mr. Tiller?
Aye.
And Mr. Evelyn?
Aye. Adjourn.